Hey, it's Mack with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and this is Tuesday. It's April the 22nd. This will be our chart lesson for today, and there's a nice trend today, a nice channel with a midline in it right through here. Um, there's not a lot of entries today, but the ones that were here were really good entries, and you've got really the first entry I saw. It started out looking like a trading range, although we did have this trend line here, and when we bounced here and here, this really confirmed it. And you see we took off from there. That was when most people realized, hey, this is probably a bigger trend, and it took off. Um, but as we started out in this trading range, I like this entry right here. Originally, I had this a little bit steeper off those first two, and this was just a pullback, and I thought that confirmed the trend line, so I went long there. But either way, it's still, notice this area of support across here. We broke a little below it in the overnight, so you figure we're probably going to break a little bit above it when we go higher here, and that's kind of what happened. Then we pulled back and tested, and then we go higher from there. But this was the first entry I saw. It's really a two-legged pullback. You didn't get you got a little bit of overlap here, and you got some matching lows across here as well. You can see that when we fail and break lower, but it's really just a retest of this original support level right across here. And we tested that, and it turned up higher. You probably want to use a limit order here. You could have used a stop, and you see it would have worked. But you could have gotten in this one maybe a tick, maybe even two back in. I can't remember exactly how far back it moved, but definitely a tick in, definitely right at the top. You could have saved a tick or two trying to get out before you got back to this top, but it didn't matter. Even if you used the stop, it went right on up, but sometimes it will matter, so you got to think about that. And then we get a two-legged correction back to the trend line, the EMA, and it's also a retest of the high of the range, and it turns prices up. This is second entry long. Notice the new high, first entry pullback, second entry. And this was these two both were really, excuse me, I'm sorry. I got a little, throat's been bothering me the last couple of days. It's springtime around here, and the pollen from the pine trees is nuts, and it drives my throat nuts. But you'll just have to bear with me a little bit. But either one of these trades were easy runners, and that was not. I thought they were going to get the runner here, but they didn't quite get it. And then any runners were safe here as well if you're, trading runners. So two nice entries, two nice money-making entries. And then this one, I went back and forth whether or not to make this one green or not. But when we broke higher and pulled back and tested that, what looked like the upper part of the channel at one time and bounced higher, then you got to be thinking, hey, we probably got a midline in here, and you just find an equal distance, which is usually going to be one of these other points here. And it is a confirmation of this trend line. Notice this pullback right here, and then you pull back again and test it, and that kind of confirms it. So, and it's really a failed second entry short as well. You've got a new low right here, first entry, pullback, second entry. So you might have even looked at that. It's not a real obvious one that a lot of people are going to spot, but it turned out it worked, and prices went on higher. And took a little bit to work on up here. And from this point on, it's gotten a little choppy, but this doesn't look like it, but when you see these small bars that keep going higher and higher and bouncing off the EMA and trend lines and keeps going higher, that's a strong trend. It does look like it's losing some momentum up here because we're not getting back to the upper line anymore. And so we are losing some momentum. It doesn't mean that we can't go higher yet, but you can see it really started losing momentum here. We haven't come back. We've reached the upper side, and we haven't come back to the lower trend line yet. But that's because this is a strong trend. Even though it doesn't look like it, it's still a fairly strong trend. When you see these trends that just keep going higher and the EMA pointing up, and you see lots of little bitty choppy looking overlapping bars with lots of dojis, that's really a strong trend. You just have to wait for the right setups, and generally you can get on and move forward with them. And so, but anyway, I like this trade. There was enough room. You figured we're still going to this upper side here, and we weren't quite there yet on an equal distance move. When it turned back down here, you might have got a little bit nervous if you didn't use a limit order here. This is another one where, because there's a little bit of overlap here, when it broke higher, you might have thought about a limit order, and it would have come back and even filled it here, and you would have gotten out as it moved on higher. And then as soon as it did touch, it tried to correct. We went into a correction. But notice there's a shorter term trend line here, and we got the break here, the move to a new high, and then we had this correction, and then we started moving higher again. And I really thought we'd come back to the other side of this trend channel, but we didn't. And this was really, you're better off just to kind of stay out of this. You might have thought about going long here, but there's no, you've got a little bit of a channel here and then a break and a move to a new low. So you might have thought about going long here, but it's not a very good setup. There's not very much room here to the highs. Actually, you probably would have moved your highs on up to here by now when you made those closes a little higher there. But when it pulls back and then turns up again, I liked going long right there. And that was a fairly quick, easy scalp. And then it pulls back again. And somebody asked me about going long right here. Somebody sent me an email and wanted to know why I didn't think that was why that failed. And what they did was they used this, I guess, as their signal bar. Their chart looked a little bit different. Maybe I'll put it up here in a minute. But they went long above that bar right there. But you just made a new high. And you just had a break of this channel and a move to a new high. Actually, you already had the move to a new high here, and then you went in this correction. But you just made another new high, and you had a breakout of this little channel here. So the odds are prices are going to pull back. And I really thought prices would go all the way to here. But when you got the second entry, you got a little bit of a channel working up there. It's the first break. And, it's really right along that median line, and it closed back above it. So I kind of liked going along there. And that one would have worked. But you don't want to take a first entry, that close to the high. There's just not room there. And there's too big a chance, especially when we were looking for prices to kind of come back to this other side, which we still haven't gotten there yet. But there's no setup there on my chart. And so we'll pull their chart up and look at it just in a minute and see if it looks any better. But I like the second entry, and of course it works. So the only time you want to take a first entry is when you're in a runaway type trend. And even though this is a good trend, it's not a runaway trend. Look at all that overlap and how choppy it looks. There's too many times that prices are chopping up and down. And another question this trader had, really what they were saying was they were calling this the signal bar, I guess. Maybe they had a break lower on their chart, but they were calling that the signal bar. And so they said they had their stop exactly 2 ticks below that, and they got stopped out, and it went higher anyway. And they were thinking that maybe they would give their stop more room. But the key is if you're finding the true signal bar, which is the signal bar is the low or high of each swing. So this is your signal bar here. This was one here to the short. This was one here to the short side. This is the one. This was your low bar here. So that's your signal bar. This is not, it might have looked like it could be a signal bar, but when prices went lower, you just misread it and you were wrong. It's not the signal bar. This would be your signal bar here. This was one up here, assuming you were going to go short. But really the signal bar is the low. Here's the signal bar, or the high of every swing. And so you have to remember that. And if you're reading the price action right, you're going to be okay with a tick or two. So if it goes more than a tick or two, you're not reading it right, and something is probably wrong. Either that or, they're running a trap or something of that nature. So I don't recommend, because you got stopped out here, this just was not a good entry. There's no reason to take a first entry right there. It's just no reason. And it's not really a first entry on mine. I guess it is. It never really broke lower yet, though, so you're still really in an uptrend there until it turns lower. Even though it closed lower here, it never really broke lower. So let me see if I can find their chart. I'm going to pause this just a second. Okay, here's the chart in question, you can see it made a new high, it pulls back. It did tick lower on theirs and then tick higher, but it was a doji right in the middle, right beside another doji, and you've only got two ticks for the high. It's just, you don't want to be, and he's got this channel drawn here, and so you're right at the high of the channel, so you know you don't have much room to get above there. So it's just not a very good entry. You just misread it, and notice it comes back, and then it bounces off his lower trend line and it goes higher like you would expect. He's got it drawn a little differently than me. Mine's a little bit steeper, and so here's the, you actually got a break on mine and then the move to a new high, but, and he doesn't have his median line in there, so he's missing that as well. But even if he'd have drawn that up, then he probably would have been bouncing right off but if you draw this off the top, it looks like he's got it drawn right. And let me just open mine again. And you can see his chart's a little bit different than mine, but it's not enough different that you should have, you don't want to be taking that trade. You actually have this trading range, and you know, generally you're going to pull back after you break out and test the highs again. And, you know, wait on that, and that's only one leg, and so now notice that by the time it did go higher, it had two legs back. And so that's just not a good entry. You need room to get out, and there's no trap there or anything like that. In fact, the trap came here, and then you got this big bearish part, it breaks lower, and then it turns up, and so that's where they really trapped it. You're looking for the traps. For some reason, a bounce off support, and even the way he drew his line here, he wasn't quite back there, but it could have been drawn a little bit steeper. But if you're drawing it here, it looks like it's right, and you drag that down, then I think he's got it right on there. And you can see his closes stayed in, it touched the line again. So I think he had it drawn right. It just, you just want to wait on the second entry, especially after you've just made a new high for the day. Anytime you make a new high for the day, there's going to be some kind of correction, and you need to wait probably on a second entry unless you've got a real tight channel and you're coming off your channel, and you weren't right there. You weren't even back to the channel, even close where he entered there. You were just coming off the upper side, so you're looking for prices to go to the other side. And so I hope that makes sense to that trader. There was one other thing I wanted to put up today. Another email I got here. Let me find it. Okay, this trader was talking about, he basically sent me an email and said, Mack, I found a couple of trades where prices actually closed below the 21 a.m. and not much rejection, but these second entries were successful. So I just want to make sure people understand what we're talking about when you get a reversal. Notice that prices are still finding support off that EMA. They got through, but just because you get a breakthrough doesn't mean the trend's over. Notice here you got a breakthrough and you got some closes below, but look how it's still holding prices. See if I can make this a little bigger. Yeah. You can see how it pulled back and it bounced right there, and it just made a second leg down. There's two legs down right there, and it's a second entry, so that's a great entry. Especially, and then same thing here. You got one leg back, a pull back, and another leg back, and another second entry there on a bigger picture. And again, you're still finding, notice how it's bouncing off the EMA. Even though it got through, it's still finding support there. Now look at this other, if you go up here when you finally got a reversal, look what happens this time. Prices shoot right through. You don't get any resistance at all or support at all, and then you actually are getting resistance under here. So hopefully that you can see the difference. Look, this looks more like his previous one. Notice how it comes back to the EMA, and it's not getting rejected, but it's still finding support there. I'm sorry, and it does get through, but here it doesn't find any support at all. That's what a reversal looks like. It just shoots right through. and it pulls back and finds actually resistance. So hopefully that makes sense on the difference in them two. So don't get confused thinking that just because it goes through the EMA that it's going to reverse. That's not the case. It's when it goes through, it's when you've met all your other criteria. And again, this is not written in stone. This is just a clue. We could have actually still gone higher here, but you're starting to see the buyers fade and the sellers getting stronger. That's just a clue. So there's other clues. You got to have a break of your trend line and a new high and things like that. And it's hard to tell about his trend lines and stuff here, but it looks like he's got most of his shorter term ones right. But yeah, but don't get confused on what we're looking for. This doesn't look like a reversal to me here, and this one doesn't really look like a reversal, although it could. It doesn't look like one. This is what a reversal looks like. It shoots straight through that EMA and then gets under it. It's acting as resistance a couple of times, and then you get a second entry short right there, and then off it goes. And so that's what you're looking for. So I hope that makes sense, and I hope that's helpful to those two traders, and it probably hopefully answers questions for the rest of you. And again, once you got into this tight, kind of tight, small range right here, you're better off just to sit tight until you get a trap or something. And that didn't come till over here. And you see we're still going higher here. This thing's still holding off the EMA. And so even though it doesn't look like it, this is a fairly strong trend. And you just have to be patient and wait on the setups. What happens is people see this going higher and higher and higher, and they're missing all the entries. And then finally they say, if I get one more little correction, I'm entering. And then they enter, and then you get the correction right there, and they run everybody out, and then they start taking it higher again. And so you got to be patient and wait on, you only enter long at the lows, and you don't enter long at the highs. So you got to wait on the corrections and the pullbacks. And they'll come, and just because you miss a couple of entries doesn't mean, what'll happen is people will get antsy and think, I missed the move, it's going to go without me. And they see it working higher, and as soon as they finally enter, then it backs up and it takes out their stop, and then it goes right back where they thought it would go. So just be patient, wait on the right setups, and if you miss one, you just miss one, but don't let it rattle you, don't let it shake you. Just wait for the next pullback setup and then enter. So hopefully that's clear to you. I hope that was helpful. And I'm going to wrap this one up today. This is Mack with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.